Well, so unfortunately, that powermore engine that was on this thing, I had to end up scrapping it just because it wasn't really worth putting too much more work into it, and the carburetor was actually messed up. I did try to fix the carburetor, but it just kept leaking and leaking, and replaced the needle and the seat, and cleaned it out again, and it was cleaned out I don't know how many different times in my ultrasonic cleaner. But by the end of it, it just really wasn't worth putting more money into it. Now what I have here is a motor that I got off my shelf, engine, for those of you who actually care enough to differentiate between the two. But I got this off of my shelf, and it does have compression, which is why I saved it. I do need to find another beauty cover for it, which I should have one of those somewhere. Let's see what else. I don't know, other than it having compression, where exactly the carburetor is at. I probably do need to clean it, and I'm going to. I know I need to replace the fuel line, so I'll do that anyways. And replace the primer bulb. This primer bulb's actually pretty well shot. It's yeah, it's definitely had it. So we'll be replacing that. I'm going to check the plug and let's see what else we can get into. But first thing I'm going to do is wash it off with the hose before I start working on it. And then I'm going to get working with the carburetor. We're going to change the oil in this thing, put a little bit of oil stabilizer in it. Honestly, why I'm going through with this right now is because a coworker came up to me and wanted to buy a push mower with a bag. So I said, well, I can put one together for you because you don't really want to spend all that much money. So I'll probably end up selling him this one for 80 bucks, depending on what I need to do to it. And he doesn't want to spend 200 on a brand new one or 250 on a brand new one, so 80 or maybe 100 bucks, and I think he'll be more than happy. All right, so let's pull the carburetor off. Our filter's in good shape, so we'll save that. Replace this gasket, usual. Alright, so as is standard practice with these things, these carburetors often need to be cleaned out because of ethanol. And it's so common that even if I know the carburetor needs it or not, it more or less is going to get a good cleaning. We're going to pull this fuel line off. I'll be sizing this up with a new one, 1/2 inch socket for the bolt. And these are very typical that these get varnished up, and you can already tell that this one's pretty clogged up. Definitely the top. It's all congealed. This is the #1 part that's going to have any sort of issues on these Briggs & Stratton carburetors, and Tecumseh's too, is this bolt. Small flat blade screwdriver. This carburetor might actually be screwed up. Ooh. The needle and float are stuck. That is a lot of varnish and rust. Actually, it's just varnish. These things can't rust. Ooh. That is bad. I could probably save this one, but it's more than likely not worth it. Because once they get this bad, a rebuild or a cleaning is, I don't want to say it's entirely out of the question, but it's a lot easier just to swap another carburetor on here that I know that's good. Because I could clean this thing and then rebuild it later on, and I've had issues with these before sometimes where cleaning and rebuilding is just not enough for them. Yeah, that's all varnished on there. So very typical. let me grab another carburetor out of the hoard and I'll be right back. So straight out of the hoard, I do have another carburetor. It should be good. I do need to pull off this old bowl gasket. So we're going to need to the needle, new float, good used float. This one looks better, so we'll use that one. And got so many of these bolts. This one just needs to be cleaned, so save that. This is the old float. Throw that away. I don't even want to chance it. I've got so many of these bowls that I could probably throw this away too. Already have a freshly cleaned pin, bowl, and needle. So we should be able to get lucky. Here's the needle. A lot of these carburetors, I disassemble them and clean them up really good before I put them away. So often they're perfectly fine. This is a new bowl gasket. And these are two different styles of bowl. I don't think it really matters which one you use. There we have that. That should be okay. Let's see if it's the same one. It appears that it is, other than this part over here. If I need to change that out for it and swap it, I will. But I don't think it's really going to matter for this application. There we go. Throw the fuel line. Carb. And we'll save that. So the carb should be good to go. I'm going to run a wire through that just in case, but I think we're good otherwise. So now we can change these out. Alright, so this is really pretty easy, but here's the old one, I just pulled it out. Here's the brand new one. Just stick it back in, and I get a socket, and I shove it back down. Because I don't know the history of this engine, I decided to pull this off, and I figured out why this is not wanting to retract as fast as it should. And it's because they use something like a shoelace, which is too big. So I'll be replacing that with some actual pull cord that I have. And while I'm here, I'm going to pull off the starter cup to inspect the flywheel key, just in case, because again, I'm already here. And it looks like we do, in fact, have a slightly sheared flywheel key. So I'll need to replace that. Not too hard. Definitely did its job. So here's the new key. So, brand new cord. No more shoelace. Loop that up a little bit. Perfect now. So So now just to reinstall everything and go from there. Alright, so I haven't tried it yet, but if it starts and runs, I'm going to let it run for a while. Pull it outside, of course, after I show you guys if it works or not. Just let the oil warm up a little bit, and then I'm going to proceed with changing it. Alright, blades on. So I'm just going to let it run for a little while and then change the oil. You guys will see a jump cut, but I'm going to run it for a few minutes. Now that is some really black oil. So I'm just going to let it drain for a little bit. But this oil stabilizer actually helps out worn engines pretty good. Some people say it's a snake oil, but I've had good luck with it so far. So I'm going to throw a little bit in with this. I got to calculate it out. They say to put 20% of system capacity. These Briggs hold about 20 ounces or so of oil, so about 4 ounces and we should be good to go. So it's more or less drained out for now. Now I'm actually going to use my syringe here because it's kind of rubbed off a little bit, but 4 ounces are about right here. So I'm going to fill it up with some Lucas. There's 4 ounces or so. Now you guys heard how loud and noisy this engine was. Just going to put about 16 ounces in or so. And I'm going to let her. Good to go. All right, so let's start her up one more time. Let it run for a little bit. Check the level one more time. Perfect. So just to make it look a little bit better now, and hopefully we'll be good to go. And so this is it. I'll put back together. Had another beauty cover from another lawnmower, which actually matched up perfectly because this one is an MTD anyways. But new pull cord, new flywheel key, new oil with Lucas oil stabilizer, new air hat gasket, new primer bulb, cleaned up carburetor. I didn't check the spark plug yet, but I will do that off camera. It's supposed to be, I think, 30 thousandths is pretty standard for most Briggs & Stratton engines. complete, ready for my coworker.